So
Are you
my
okay?
family
Oh my gosh.
gathering of 6 or more is coming back on me
Oh, no.
for Thanksgiving.
No. You got the coronavirus.
I shouldn't say it in front of my lawyer, but I'm a serial felon. Because I had Nana and I had Mama and
You
Papa.
criminal.
Just consider it a house in a Mexican neighborhood with 19 cars in the driveway.
Your Christmas card is evidence.
Yes. I present
to
to
jail,
you
sir.
Exhibit A, making jolly and merry. We did, but we'll get tested.
Now a felony.
And we have a lot to talk about today, by the way. I may have voted twice.
Oh.
And if you want to lose all
boy.
hope for humanity, just read the @replies to when I tweeted this. People were like, no. I was like, just wait to the show.
Never read
Called
ad
the I'm
replies.
going to
Never.
show receipts. I am going to show you my wife's registration, her vote, which she did absentee, my grandmother, and myself, 2 different states, despite a formal change of address. So we're going to get into that. We're going to be talking about the new lawsuits. Not new, but Thanksgiving. We both read about 200 pages of affidavits, of briefs.
You read much more than 200 pages.
Did I? I don't remember. I didn't really have the same Thanksgiving that you
passed
did.
out and woke up later.
Pass the cranberry. I need to read, I need to somehow find out how to read these symbols that are apparently written in papyrus because the brief was, I don't know, I guess Sidney Powell didn't have a space bar, but I don't want to detract from the message. We'll be talking about that. We will be talking about Tucker Carlson and whether he is friend or foe. I know there have been a lot of sort of, a lot of chirping from people.
little bit
That's what I said.
Just
Just
a
to
bit.
Twitter. I don't want to give them a plug. But my half
You always say that.
My half-Asian lawyer, Bill Richmond, is here. How are you, sir?
Hey, great. Glad
Did you have
to
a good
hear.
Thanksgiving?
I did.
Do you guys eat turkey?
Oh, yeah.
Do you eat Peking duck?
Oh, yeah. All sides. The Mexican side, the Chinese side, the cracker
Really?
side. Yeah, we all love turkey.
And your wife does not look Mexican at all.
Yeah.
She looks very much more like, she looks like Jasmine, Princess Jasmine.
Very much so, yes.
Very much.
She doesn't have the MC Hammer pants very often.
No.
But when she does,
Right.
and when she gets the tiger out, man.
Plus, she's allowed to drive.
Goodness.
Yeah.
My producer, Corda Black, Garrett, is here.
what's going on?
Gerald A., how are you? Good Thanksgiving?
Well, yes, very good Thanksgiving.
Audio Wade, Tokenawan is here. And by the way, people who are watching right now, the many thousand, click like. We're running some A/B
Yes.
testing on YouTube, seeing if likes or comments result in this appearing in your notification, your subscription feed. So everyone right now who's watching, whether you're watching live or archive, please just click like.
Do it.
Do it.
We have a lot of news to get to. First off, I'm sure you guys have read about this. Joe Biden had a hairline fracture in his foot.
So sad.
Playing with his dog. Of course, listen, obviously, I think this is probably one of the greatest frauds perpetrated on the American public with the vote, but it doesn't mean that I want Joe Biden to twist an ankle.
Sure.
And unfortunately, we do have exclusive footage of the incident. I don't know what you
Don't.
Yeah.
I mean,
just run the actuary tables. You know he's not going to make it very long with
Hey.
a dog like Major.
look, even Major's doing his part for the American people here, all
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I like
Yes.
Major. He's a good guy.
You know, maybe not completely effective, but he's still working at it.
Well, the love of a dog can sweep one off their feet. Isn't that right, Joe Lewis?
Yep.
Okay. And by the way, another big thing for Joe Biden, before we move on to why this really is likely untrue, the media is reporting that he finally crossed the 80 million threshold for
wow.
votes. That's the largest turnout in
Yeah.
American election history, which makes sense because, look at his social media following and how many times he is the most beloved president
Ever.
I
clear.
believe
So much
ever.
enthusiasm.
Yeah, his enthusiasm gap was very small.
You know what, guys? We got to say, we have to call it that we were wrong here, obviously, because we made fun of him for all of those lids.
Yeah.
I mean, Monday,
Yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday
That
lids.
time he shopped at Lids.
I mean, it was
no.
crazy.
That was
He
epic.
got that flat bill,
got
left the sticker on.
He got
Left
confused,
it
went
on.
into
With the
Journeys.
sticker on.
You can't get away with Vans old school. Plus, they have no traction. I don't care how they market the waffle grip. That's why Major took you off your feet, Joe Biden. But he did cross the 80 million threshold. And we actually do go now live to his celebration at the Biden campaign headquarters. Listen, I'm not going to throw stones on someone being married because I did it this weekend.
Yeah, dude.
Hey,
The one in
You
the
gotta drop them
pigtails
beats, man.
was actually the COVID czar.
Was it?
Oh,
was
yeah.
true.
Yeah.
It was
That makes
true.
sense,
My
though.
cousins Wang and Chang, man, they know how to drop a beat.
That's disgusting, Bill.
Everybody Corona tonight. So, by the way, follow me on Instagram here. We're going to be moving along the trail. If you are not following me, Louder with Crowder on Instagram. Of course, we'll be taking your live chat after this, playing Hipster or Hobo on Mug Club exclusive.
That's an oldie, but a goodie.
Do consider joining up louderwithcrowder.com/Mug Club. My question to you right now off the bat is, what do you think is the most egregious example of the, I don't want to say election fraud, the election shenanigans at this point? Do you think it's the Dominion software issue that people have talked about? Do you think it's sending poll workers home and not allowing them to observe? Do you think it's the out-of-state ballots? Do you think it's what do you think is the example that is most definitive, that matters most? What do you think will end up in any of these situations being thrown out? I guess kind of right off the bat. I think Georgia might flip. We spent a long time going through the Georgia brief in Michigan. Georgia was 104 pages. Michigan was 75.
And that's just the briefs. That's not even including the affidavits, the analysis, a lot of stuff there.
And before we get to that, Michigan and Georgia, let me start with a little personal anecdote. So,
little Michigan.
On a hunch, I find out this weekend, on a hunch, Your Honor, that I was registered to vote in 2 different states.
Really?
Despite the fact that I did vote. I did vote in one state, and I had a formal change of address. My wife voted absentee, and there's a way to track absentee.
Yeah.
We'll get into that. Apparently, she did not vote absentee. Now, I will allow there's maybe a 99% chance that this is all an accident, including, by the way, with my grandmother, 96-year-old grandmother, who you saw at the Michigan rally, who also voted absentee. But the system just shows that she did not vote absentee. So this is a little disturbing. We have some phone calls to make, follow up on. But I will grant you, I could be wrong about all of it, and it's just a system error, in which case, don't worry about it, because it's just the largest, most pivotal election in American history.
The system works,
They
Stephen.
saw your granny coming a mile away.
Yes.
At 2 miles an hour.
The thing is, my 97-year-old grandmother is playing 4D chess. She's got them right where she wants them.
She's awesome.
Play checkers and give my money to those Chinamen. It's chess. So they started wanting to check the status of my wife's absentee vote, because there's a lot going around where they're saying you hear this rhetoric that many millions of Americans believe that their vote did not count.
Right. Yeah.
And I go, well, hold on a second. We've checked public voting records before, at least for previous elections. That's not too hard to do. It should be pretty easy to find out if my vote counted, if my wife's vote counted. Some states don't give you the ability to track your vote, just your registration. Some states do give you the ability to track your vote if you voted absentee, assuming the post office works. So again, we're making some leaps here.
Yeah.
It's a big assumption.
Give us a minute.
Look before you post office. So some states do. Michigan is one of them. Michigan is one state that does give you the ability to track your absentee ballot. Okay, but I don't want you to take my word for it. Go to clip 2.
The most important tool that people need to know about is really the Michigan Voter Information Center, which can be found at michigan.gov/vote. It's a service that's run by the Secretary of State Bureau of Elections, and on that you can find if you're registered, your registration status, where you vote at, the contact information for your local clerk. On that, if you have voted absentee, you can see the date that your request was received by your local clerk, when your ballot was mailed out, when they received it. So that's a great tool to kind of hold the clerk accountable and to make sure that you know that where your vote is at in the process.
Sorry, clerks. Hope you have an answering machine. Because I will encourage everybody to check this out. And if you have the same anomalies that I found with every person I know who voted absentee in Michigan, I would encourage you to call your clerks and go through the process. Let me explain to you, too, really quickly. This is how that is supposed to look. We have a video. You can keep my mic on. Look, you go to the website. And then you have an area where you track your registration. That's nice. You go, you hit your registration, and you type in your information. And then if you have already voted absentee, this will show you right here what turns up. For people who are listening on audio, right here we well, this is the wrong one. I think we have clip 3 first before that. Quarter Black Garrett. This is clip 3.
This is clip 3. Yeah.
This is clip 3. Okay, but that's my wife. And it did not. So there, it says that she's registered. But there's an actual clip here that should show what it should look like that Reg sent in. If not, you can bring it up, Steve Gibbon, really quickly. So that was my wife who did vote absentee. So you look at that and you say, okay, well, that shows that she's registered.
Look, the system's working.
But my wife voted absentee already. So this is not to check and see if you're registered. This is supposed to be an ability to track your ballot. Do we have that token on where we can bring that up from Reg, where we have a video that actually shows what it looks like if someone has voted absentee, and you should be able to track it?
We're pulling it up now.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I need that really, really quickly.
Warp
because
speed.
that's kind of pivotal here, and it should have been in the show map. For record, my wife did vote absentee in Michigan.
Yeah.
For record, I did not. Okay. Also, my grandmother, my 96-year-old grandmother, we can bring this up as an overlay. She did as well. You saw her at the Michigan rally. Let's bring that up just as an overlay so you guys can see it. This is my grandmother. There you go. Yeah. So it says, congratulations, you are registered. Good.
That's fantastic.
That sounds great.
But it doesn't say that you voted or the progress on your vote.
Right.
Let's show that clip if we have it, that Reg the Bandit sent. Do we have it here of what it looks like? We don't have it. Of what it looks like if you actually voted. It will show you the progress. We'll go back to it. Show you the progress of your absentee ballot, usually with some kind of tracking info.
So Luke did absentee as well, right?
Is this about as good as like when I'm tracking an Amazon package and it says that it arrived, but really it's just the post office?
Private industry, far more effective.
Far more. Yes.
So it only says that they were registered to vote. We'll get that video up here in a second. Now, to be clear, I voted in Texas.
Okay.
Okay, we can show this right here. I voted in Texas. Quarter Black Garrett.
We do have the Michigan
Okay,
now
video.
it's there.
Before we go to
All
my
right.
vote, this is what it should look like, and we'll just go through this all the way again so people can see it in sequential order, because I don't want anyone to have any reason to doubt this. This is what it should look like if you go to that website and you vote, and you voted absentee, and it tracks your address. Audio, wait, it looks like you're panicking over there. We have it?
So would you like the video first or your personal registration first?
Let's show the video first.
yeah.
If you vote in Michigan, you voted absentee. This is what it should look like. Keep my mic on. Let's show what it looks like. And here is the video. How to track your Michigan absentee ballot. There you go. Right here on YouTube. Okay, michigan.gov. Vote. You
Looks
go
like
there.
what you did.
Looks like what we did. Okay, are you registered? You enter in your information to show if you are registered and if you vote by mail. This is the video right here. It shows you, entering in your birth date. You can enter in your month. Then you enter in your birth date. You don't need the exact day. You just need the year. And then you enter in your zip code. Now, this should show you, look, you are registered. And it should show you the status of your absentee vote. See that right there? With a tracking number.
Yeah.
Let's bring up really quickly. We can, I don't know if we can warp speed again so people can see my wife voted absentee in Michigan. This is what she got when she signed up. There you go. Exact same process. We entered in the proper information. She is registered to vote in Michigan. I know some of you are saying, well, because we have a house in Michigan. We've had some family members in ill health. My wife has been in Michigan for quite a few months out of the year before other than me this year. So here we go. We entered in her information. I'm going to block it because she is married. So you don't see all of her information. Here you go. Now we enter it in. Zip code.
In process, yeah.
You are registered.
Okay.
But
no other information.
what else?
That's it.
She voted absentee. And by the way, she's not a Democrat. She voted well ahead of the deadline for the election. Sent it in. She wasn't like, I don't know, same week,
wait.
good enough. Now, I thought maybe that's just an anomaly. My grandmother is 97, someone who is actually at risk of the COVID. Plus, it's just a trek. She's got to go down to a grade school.
Yeah.
So let's bring that up again. My grandmother, Ruth, 97 years old. Here is, just says you're registered. No status on absentee voting.
No other
Now
info.
to yours truly, on a hunch, I voted in Texas because I did not spend nearly as much time in Michigan here. So I had a formal change of address. Voted in Texas. Let's show this really quickly. This is proof of me voting in Texas. I'm registered to vote in Texas. Great. Formal change of address.
Yeah.
I'm obviously on file there. Here's something else interesting. I'm also registered to vote in Michigan. Bring that up, quarterback.
I don't have it.
Okay. Well, anyway, let's bring this up.
are.
There's there you go. I am registered to vote in Michigan. Now, that may not seem in and of itself disturbing enough, though I would argue it is.
Yeah.
Let's bring this up from Forbes. Michigan's law is that everybody who's registered to vote gets a ballot. They don't have to be requested. This was signed into law. Anyone
after-
registered to vote gets a ballot. So someone living at that address where I no longer live, this is an old residence, received my ballot. As to whether they voted, I do not know. All I know is my wife voted in Michigan. My wife voted absentee. My grandmother voted absentee, who lives in Michigan 100% of the days of the year. And the information that we have on their absentee vote is the exact same information we have on my voter registration in Michigan, which is false. So, best case scenario, this is a broken system where you cannot check the status of your absentee ballot. Worst case scenario, it's the perfect system to try and remove any transparency for obvious fraud.
Right.
And we will be making some calls to clerks. I want everyone who voted absentee in Michigan, everyone who voted absentee, period. If you have a state, there's a database, we'll have it up at louderwithcrowder.com, where you can check in your state if you have the ability to track your absentee vote. Not everyone does. Michigan, you do. There's more than just my wife and grandmother, by the way. In case you're
kind
wondering.
of do.
There's a little bit of 9D chess here. We're still looking into it.
And what it does is it really highlights a problem that people had already identified weeks and months ahead of time, which was if you move to a mandatory sending of absentee ballots to all registered voters, it completely ignores the fact that those systems and logs typically lag months or quarters behind people moving, their address changes, dying, that kind of thing. And while certainly there are systems in place to check those things, but if you combine a rush to count them all, I mean, in a normal election, you would have a smaller number of issues.
Exactly.
You have a smaller number to check.
But there really aren't any systems for Michigan to check this right now.
And now they have nothing. And yet
I changed my address formally. I clearly voted in a different state. I don't live there.
Well, the systems don't talk. I mean, the system in Texas doesn't talk to the system in Michigan.
Oh, it seems like that should be a necessity in a federal election.
You would think so, but that's not there.
It seems like it should be as proficient as when I used to play Bolo in the computer science lab in the 6th grade on LAN network.
I feel like we're stuck in AOL online stuff. Like, really, we don't have a system where you can change the address and it updates
being
immediately?
Generous.
Yeah.
I bet you that the federal government has net zero addresses.
Yes.
Not a one.
And they make calls from Vonage. Now, people say you want to disenfranchise voters now by throwing... Well, hold on a second. I don't know if my wife doesn't know if her vote counted. My 97-year-old grandmother, she probably doesn't have that many votes left. Maybe she might get a midterm in there if she's lucky. We don't know if her vote counted. So this is what I'm saying. Unless it's legal, unless it's constitutional, you have to throw them out.
Yeah.
You have to throw them out if you cannot know that every legal vote is counted. Because right now we are in a system where illegal votes are absolutely counted, and we'll get into the documents, we'll get into the briefs here and the affidavits.
Yep.
And we don't know if legal votes are counted. There's no way to track it. There's no way to track it either.
And that's disenfranchising you. You also have a right to make sure that your vote not only counts, but is not diluted with illegal votes. For whatever reason, mistakes can happen where you send ballots out to people who shouldn't get them. They've moved, whatever happens, right? So, and people can be, bad actors. They can fill out your ballot and send it in and say, "Ha ha, Democrat."
I tell you what, if someone actually voted in Michigan for me, I'm going to be upset.
That would be funny.
No, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to laugh.
I would too.
But then we'll have to go. Then I'll have to go to
Keep in mind too. The recounts didn't check signatures because there's a secrecy envelope. There's the ballot. Right? They didn't check. They just recounted the numbers in the machines, which is a marvel to me that Georgia found 5,500 votes without actually auditing or checking signatures. So think about this scenario. Right? We don't know what happened with my wife's absentee ballot, despite the fact that we follow the exact instructions on following up as to whether the absentee ballot was counted. Every single person that I've checked on, not just these two, these are the ones that I'm showing because I can 100% confirm it, has no status update on their absentee ballot, and I have no idea as to whether I voted or not, but I know that a ballot, according to the law, was sent to my previous address, and they aren't checking for signatures, and ballots are being rejected at a rate of 30 times lower than in previous elections.
Wow.
Someone doesn't even need to forge my signature. It requires less mustache twisting than forging a sick note in high school. Somebody just go, you know what? I don't know Stephen Crowder. Fill it in, Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Got him.
And by the way, I don't know if you guys remember, but you moved years ago.
Yeah.
It's been a little while.
It's not like
Yes,
it's not like
years
it's
ago.
a 6-month lag.
No, it's not like it's a 6-month lag.
Final show in Michigan.
By the way,
was the
speaking of which,
election.
CNN, before we get to the lawsuit, they're saying 7 states certify results as Trump makes baseless fraud claims.
they always say
Whatever
that.
happened to the word alleged?
Nah.
Shouldn't it be like baseless? No, hold on. Alleged fraud claims.
Alleged. Yes.
That, by the way, we actually do have some injunctions that have been filed. We actually do have some seizing of property that has been going forward.
Yeah.
So
Thank God.
if you are following this in the media right now, they want you to believe that Donald Trump wants to throw out millions of votes just to try and win, to disenfranchise voters. And that is dangerous because if we actually follow the constitutional, both letter of the law and spirit of the law to have a free and fair election, guess what? You're going to have violence and rioting in the streets because people have been told that Donald Trump is stealing it from them. What about my vote? What about my wife's vote? I'm not going to burn down a Walgreens, but if it turns out that their votes weren't counted and my non-vote was, I'm going to be pissed.
Very
I might picket a Walgreens Even though it's not their fault. But I don't know. I'm just angry. It's the language of the unheard.
You know, it might be Walgreens' fault. I'm not sure.
It might be Walgreens'
Yeah.
fault.
What if
might
your
be.
ballot is at Walgreens?
You know what?
Same day testing.
You know
my
what
foot.
people are saying? They use this word disenfranchise, but you can only disenfranchise someone who cast a legal vote.
Exactly.
Right? It's like saying we've disenfranchised all of the voters in Singapore from casting their ballot in the American election.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, yes, we did not let them vote, but the point was they were never franchised to begin with.
We disenfranchised the Crips in not letting them take old men's Gran Torinos at will.
Damn.
I mean, they were
Oh,
denied.
what sad state of affairs in this country where Latin kings can't earn themselves a teardrop tattoo. This is unbelievable, and it's
earn it.
happened to me. So, by the way, everyone watching right now, please hit like this second. Right now, hit like because we want to see if this actually gets out to
Yeah.
people and gets through the YouTube algorithm. Just watching right now, hit like. That's all you have to do, and I do ask that you follow up on your own ballots. Okay. Let's move on to Michigan. There's a lawsuit,
yes.
right, that's been filed by
There
Sidney
is.
Powell. Can we just say the Kraken has been released? Can we just, because we were talking about, does she have some bombshells? I would say that this certainly would suffice. Doesn't mean that it's going to win, but
Right.
certainly pretty thorough and certainly something that absolutely, that in the cumulative case that's being made, I
Yeah.
don't see how you throw this out.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, look, even just over the course of the last couple of days, you had the city of Detroit have their own counsel move to intervene in the Michigan suit in order to defend the election itself in the process. Now, that makes sense because Wayne County is the center of where a lot of the controversy was, which we covered
I thought you were
all
going to
during
say
the
center of
election.
hell, but that too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to insult hell.
It's not even one of the circles.
I mean, look,
It's,
look,
it's the Tootsie Roll
they
of the
mention
hell
hell
pop.
in the Bible.
Right.
They don't mention Detroit. Okay?
No,
There's
they
a
don't.
reason.
They
all right?
don't.
So not even God would wish that on his worst enemy. Nope. So when you look at all the allegations that are brought, you really do see a lot of support for where those arguments are made. And what you're seeing as well is putting a lie to all of the coverage about, oh, wait a minute,
Yeah.
they're talking about Hugo Chavez, and Hugo Chavez died years ago. And it's like, guys, no one's saying that Hugo Chavez came from beyond the grave to switch ballots in Wayne County.
But he did
What
vote.
they're saying is follow the trail of where these systems are and the questions that are raised. And that's only one of multiple
It's a
arguments.
silly argument. Che Guevara died years ago. That doesn't stop assholes from putting him on a T-shirt.
Absolutely.
Rage Against the Machine. Let's wear a T-shirt of the guy who banned jazz. Go ahead.
No, I agree 100% with what you're saying. I think what we still need, though, is
Thank
a
you.
win. We need a very clear win. And I think a judge taking this and saying, hey, there's enough to go forward, like happened in Pennsylvania, was a very clear win. The only problem was the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania was like, well, this says we did something wrong, and I don't think we did anything wrong. So bye-bye with the lawsuit, right?
Right.
So I hope that doesn't happen in Georgia or Michigan with anything that we've got going on. Eventually it goes to the
Gerald,
Supreme Court, though.
spare me the snark today.
How about snip? And some snippage?
I'll allow a little bit of snip. So in Michigan, both the Michigan and the Georgia lawsuits, there are some allegations that are sort of joint, right? They apply to both states.
Yeah.
One, of course, is that the Dominion software was accessed by agents from China and Iran in order to manipulate elections, including the 2020 election. So this is a big one, the Dominion software issue. This is something that they do have apparently whistleblowers, and they do have sworn testimony from people who are cybersecurity experts, and there are some independent analyses that you can look up right now. Now, let's be clear. I want to be clear about something.
Yeah.
Affidavits are considered admissible, correct?
Most of the time, you
Right.
have to evaluate the statements, but yes.
Yes, you have to evaluate the statements. Statistical evidence is admissible.
By an expert, correct.
By an expert, correct.
times,
Now, in tandem, when you have affidavits from people saying, hold on a second, we were sent away because they said that a pipe burst, and turns out that it didn't, and there were all these vote dumps that don't make sense. And then you have an expert analysis say, hold on, there are these vote dumps that actually have never occurred anywhere in nature in a normal election. In tandem, that is serious evidence. We don't just have affidavits, and we don't just have circumstantial evidence. There are affidavits which can be corroborated by statistical anomalies as well as potentially videographic evidence. So this is pretty big. So let's go here. There were 289,000 more ballots that were processed. This is in the Michigan brief that you can read. In 4 precincts or townships, over what the capacity allows.
They're
Producing
efficient.
spikes that indicate manual adjustment, this is what it says, by those operating the system or by an attack from outside actors. And by the way, what's interesting about this, if you look it up in Michigan, and we have all these sources available at louderwithcrowder.com, the more conservative the county, the more abnormal the spikes in some cases.
Yeah.
Or the precinct, at least. Like you look at Kent County, and you have liberals in Grand Rapids. I'm from Michigan, so I know the state pretty well.
Yeah.
But there's some precincts in Kent County that are unbelievably conservative.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, with these dumps, they switch. And what this means is they have a certain capacity where you go, how many ballots can you process? right? How many ballots can you count in this time?
Right.
They've estimated that number, and there's 289,000 more ballots than all experts said could be processed in that time.
Right, exactly.
They were
And
fast,
this is also the state
diligent.
that couldn't get their count done in a week, and they're like, well, maybe we just sprinted too hard in that 1 hour where we counted
burned out
289,000 more votes than
counting all
we
the
had to take a
Biden
break
votes.
after that or something.
I mean,
Cramp.
this is one of those things where if there is an explanation, it's readily apparent. If there is an explanation
Yeah.
other than a manual switch of votes, if you reach the capacity of a certain system or a certain ability to do things, and you're well past that, we're not talking about, oh, you managed to squeeze in a couple because your thumbs were
Right,
working
yeah.
real fast, right? I mean, when you get that many more, you have to be able to answer the question, and all we hear is crickets.
I can just tell you today, we were over capacity. That's why we didn't have those clips ready.
Too many
Because
clips.
we do not have the budget of CNN. Only they don't use it. They tell you nothing. So
faceless.
you can
give it
clearly
to
see, like, we
Stelton.
have the ability to process this much before the show. We screwed up. You trusted us, but we fixed it. By the way, hit the notification bell if you're subscribed, because subscriptions don't mean a whole lot, and that'll, we're every weekday mornings, Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Here's another one. An independent analysis found Trump's margin of defeat in 4 states occurred within just 4 data dumps. This is a quote from it, vote pattern analysis. A few key vote updates in competitive states were unusually large in size and had an unusually high Biden to Trump ratio. We demonstrate the results differ enough from expected results to be cause for concern. Here's an example in Michigan. So in Michigan you have, I don't remember if it's 143,000 or 179,000 votes that occurred really from just a few data dumps.
Yeah.
Now, this happened, keep in mind, most of these dumps in the dead of night. Remember when we all went home?
Yep.
Right.
When people say, why conspiracy? No, we were here. We were one of the few networks. We were here while that happened. The only reason we stopped the stream was because they said, we're not going to count anymore.
Yeah.
We're going to start at 9. And we said, well, I guess there's nothing left for us to cover. They're going to start at 9. I took an hour and a half nap in a hammock and said, oh, now Trump's losing.
Wait, what?
And here's the thing that's important to note. It's not, a lot of people are throwing around like there's this debunked graph, right? I'm not an analyst. I'm not a statistician. Okay, I want to be very clear about that. But there are people who've done a lot of work, and there have also been frauds. I think, not necessarily a fraud, but got it wrong. That Dr. Shiva guy, he created a graph that wasn't quite accurate. You don't need to share. I wouldn't share that.
No.
Again, we have some analysts, and we'll have their links up at louderwithcrowder.com. Here's something that's important. If you look at the ratio, right? When you take a sample, the larger the sample, okay, there's an inverse relationship between the ratio, the margin that would occur between 2 votes. For example, if you were to take a poll, right, let's just say a precinct, we're just here in the Louder with Crowder precinct, you might have 100% for Donald Trump. Maybe someone out there voted for Libertarian. Hope you enjoy the downfall of Western civilization, but you feel good with your black tar heroin. But I'm pretty sure it'd be like 98% for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Then you go to the block of where we are here, and then, okay, maybe now you have a few hundred people, maybe you get a 90-10. Now you go to a few thousand people because you have a generally closer sampling to that of society at large, you end up with an 80-20. If you get into the many thousands, hundreds of thousands, that's where you get something more representative of the American public. Could be 50-50, could be 60-40, it would be considered a blowout in almost any precinct at a 70-30, including San Francisco. Okay? Just to be clear. But in these huge data dumps with hundreds of thousands of votes in places like Michigan, you have some percentages-wise for people to understand, like 96-4 for Biden. So we have the opposite. What we're seeing here is the larger the data dumps that occur, the more people, the greater the margin, the greater the ratio of Joe Biden to Donald Trump, which does not occur anywhere else in nature. That is a statistical anomaly, which, by the way, has only happened in these major swing states, namely a handful of major cities, Detroit, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and I can't remember, I think Milwaukee.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the most interesting analyses that I've seen. Vote pattern analysis. If you
We're
can
way
go-
past getting pronunciation right today.
Exactly. Go and read this. Or I read the entire thing. One point I wanted to make is that all of these happened. These data
can
dumps.
read?
Yeah, it's a new thing.
It's surprising.
All of these data dumps happened within 5 hours of each other. They happened only in the specific places that needed to have this happen for the swing state vote to change. And if they did an analysis and said, look, we're not
And in
no
places where
bias here.
poll workers were not allowed to watch.
Exactly. Everybody was gone, right? We have no bias here. All we're saying is if we look at all of the data, 6,000 vote dumps, and you normalize the data to make sure you're comparing apples to apples, they said this never happens. And if it does, one thing happens. 3 things happened in this one instance, especially in Michigan. And they said, look, if you just put these in line with 99% of the other data dumps, that's all you have to do. Take them from the 99.7 to 99. Donald Trump wins each of those states.
Yeah, and he also won the bellwether county. So there are a lot of things that would have to happen for the first time here in this election that have never happened before. And by the way, didn't happen in other counties. And those things just so happened to take place in the counties or in the precincts where we have hundreds of affidavits of people saying, by the way, they sent us away from poll watching and we weren't allowed to see, and they boarded it up with Bristol boards and they had ballots come in coolers. Doesn't matter what CNN says that the red wagon was just bringing in camera equipment, which, by the way, is such horse shit.
Yeah.
Listen, we carry camera equipment. You cannot protect a multi-$1,000 lens.
It's not safe.
Not
In a
Yeti.
red wagon?
You know, one of the
Right.
when that came out, I was like,
What about the coolers?
I was like,
Yeah.
okay, great. You know, you had this camera equipment, and that's all that was. You were bringing it in.
Okay.
Why did you need the Bristol boards then? If
Right.
you're
Yeah.
putting cameras inside of the room, why are you blocking the windows? Why are you sending people away?
Right,
If the
yeah.
whole thing is open, it's fine. Okay, great. Then just be consistent. When that came out, the first thing I thought was, why were you hiding
That's
it
very
then?
good. I'm going to let you finish, but first I got to process these 143,000 votes. Look at that, 96-4 Biden.
Who knew?
Damn, look at that.
You
look at
were
that.
saying?
By the way, that is enough. That is enough. I'm sorry, I have to go back. That is enough by itself.
Yes.
She could have filed a one-page document in Michigan and said, this doesn't happen in life. We have to dig here, and that would have been enough.
And there's more than that. In Georgia, the state flips if you just throw out people who kind of like have
Moved.
registration in two different states.
Exactly.
Or double votes. It's a 12,000 vote margin. Keep in mind, some people still
Tiny.
think it's like 16, 18,000, or even 14,000. No, because even in counting without checking signatures, the machine ballots twice, they found 5,500 votes, most of which for Donald Trump.
Oops.
I don't know how that happens. If not that, what warrants an actual audit? If not that, we were told before this, well, there's no election fraud. It's never happened. They were told, well, it happens, but in like
Widespread,
very
not
small
widespread.
numbers. It's not widespread. It might be a couple hundred. Then they found 5,500 ballots, and they go, oh, it's not enough to flip the state. Yeah, but you were wrong about all the other shit, and I think you're lying about the current shit.
I do appreciate that there is at least some level of intellectual honesty going on with leftist media, because they're out there. They used to say there's no such thing as voter fraud. Then they stepped back and they were like, well, there's no widespread. There's no substantial widespread. But here's the thing: it doesn't have to be widespread and substantial.
No.
You don't have to, commit voter fraud in California and Oregon and Montana and Utah and Massachusetts. You only have to find a couple of districts. You only have to do a couple of
counties.
things in a couple of precincts. Now, that's not the way you do it if you're really going to do a good job of hiding it,
Right.
because this is the statistical analysis. Now, here's one thing I think will be interesting as we move forward. People are going, what's the next step? When you get into this evidence, you start going, okay, let's compare a 96-4 in these jurisdictions and these dumps to even the most liberal, Democrat, Biden-friendly jurisdictions that use the same software.
Right.
And if you don't see those same dumps,
Or let's even compare
further
them
highlights
to the liberal, most pro-Biden demographics, counties that you could imagine, mail-in ballots, but by hand. Let's see if you find a 96-4. Let's see if you find a 92-8 consistently.
You know what you find in San Francisco, which I think is used as the example of the
AIDS.
most? It's 90-10.
So much
It's 90-10. They have not been able to get up past like
You know
the
what you don't
95
find?
point. Yeah.
Killer T cells. Also, we're going to move on to Georgia here. But first, LA Mayor Eric Garcetti. There's a name. He bent the knee to Black Lives Matter. Remember, he voted to cut the LAPD by $150 million this
Good
summer.
on him. Yeah.
Well, now here he is having the LAPD guard his home from Black Lives Matter protesters who apparently didn't get the memo that he's one of you. They're protesting because they don't want Biden to appoint him to the cabinet. Here you go. Oh, Garcetti.
What a scam.
Thank God he has the military there. Otherwise, he might require a gun. Sorry, the rest of you Californians.
With 8 rounds, 9 rounds, is that what it is?
A 10-round magazine and a bullet button.
golly. The irony of the BLM protesters. I just want to explode. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
I thought you were going to bring it
It
back.
No.
His
Look,
brain exploded.
it did.
yeah.
It did. Well, first of all, I loved that Garcetti. I mean, look at him.
It was based on Hanging with Mr. Cooper.
I like that. It was nice.
It's
The best sitcom ever.
Don't call it formulaic. For a comeback.
Oh, jeez.
I don't think he
all
ever came
original.
back.
No.
Please
Here
don't
for
tell me
years,
he's
huh?
dead, because then people say it's in poor taste. I don't think he's dead.
No, I don't think
All
so.
right, let's go on to Georgia, because this is a
here.
104-page lawsuit. Oh my gosh, that would be like Maury Povich.
There he is in the door. He's coming to the door.
Mr. Cooper, come on out. What'd I say? What'd I say? What was he talking? Did he say something?
Where's your Rick to
was
kind
he
of protect
talking
you?
to me earlier?
Yeah.
What did you say?
I said that.
It's just what I say is what I say. But did you say something? Nah. It's,
Well, that's clear.
confusing, and
Yeah.
that's why you hang with me, so you win the loop. This sitcom did not last. No, I blame Patrick Duffy and Step by Step. That's some bullshit.
Hit.
Patrick Duffy Brillo head. Yeah.
It was a hit. You think that's where Rand Paul got the haircut? So let's go to Georgia.
There's the theory.
Sidney Powell, the lawsuit there, many affidavits again, as well as statistical evidence and some video footage. It's summarizing, and we have this at loudwithcrowder.com. A few things, let me kind of hit them. Votes were switched in Biden's favor during the recount. These are the claims in the suit.
Right.
There was a lack of procedures that were being followed during the election, and Georgia purchased Dominion voting systems despite knowing vulnerabilities, which, by the way, Democrats warned about that, and Texas rejected using Dominion voting systems. The pipe burst story, remember? We were there. We were there election night. We were covering it because some systems just went down in Georgia, which we don't know the systems that went down if they were Dominion. I don't think we know that yet. But we covered that election night. You can go back if you want to watch the 9-hour stream. People go, no, why are you? There are receipts. It's called a 9-hour stream.
Right.
Do your own research.
research.
Remember the systems went down?
Yeah.
And we've talked about how
In
long that could
right-leaning
extend.
counties.
And then the pipe burst. And we're like, well, I guess they stopped counting. That happened that night. I remember talking about it. Turns out that didn't happen. And there may be video footage of them still counting. So what they did is they told people the pipe burst, you have to go home. And from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m., they continued counting votes without poll watchers. If I'm a judge, I go, oh, okay, well, let's just grab those votes and we can't know which ones from that time. Well, let's take an estimate, throw them out. Throw them out.
You have to.
Why do you want to disenfranchise? You sent people home with a bullshit story about a pipe bursting, and we have video proof that you lied. Throw them out, throw them out, throw them out.
The super speed counting with less people is pretty amazing.
exactly.
It is amazing.
They're very
How they
efficient
do
when
that.
no one is watching.
You know,
That's all it
that
is.
makes it. Sometimes I just got to go to a quiet spot. You know, I fake a pipe burst, and I can bang out a brief real fast.
Hold on, I can't talk. I'm vote laundering.
The quiet morning.
So this is actually right here in the actual lawsuit. This to me is really big because it says specifically video from the State Farm Arena in Fulton County shows that on November 3rd, after the polls closed, election workers falsely claimed a water leak required the facility to close. All poll workers and challengers were evacuated for several hours. At about 10 p.m., however, several election workers remained unsupervised and unchallenged, working at the computers for the voting tabulation machines until after 1 a.m. And of course, they failed Dominion.
Yes.
That name keeps popping up. It's the Eddie Haskell of voting systems. It can't tabulate. We can't tabulate which votes took place during that time.
Oh, no.
Now, again, this is what happened. The media has not acknowledged this. The media goes, oh, a pipe burst. And this is what would happen if you're watching CNN or Fox News. And we'll talk about Tucker Carlson in a little bit. I don't dislike the guy, but I think it's something that warrants being addressed considering the Sidney Powell shenanigans. And I believe that the Kraken it's a Kraken. So they just said a pipe burst on election night. We told you a pipe burst on election night.
Right.
Then afterward, they said, by the way, there's no evidence. Right. They just said completely unfounded claims of voter fraud. There's no evidence of voter fraud or irregularities. But we followed up. Hold on a second. That pipe didn't burst. You know that. We followed up on that. Now we say, wait a second. There is videographic evidence, and it's filed in this suit under penalty of perjury that they have videographic evidence of those people sending folks away and still counting votes for 3 hours. You don't see that on the media right now. So you still think all of this is unfounded. And that coincides with the affidavits of people saying we were sent home because a pipe burst and we didn't go back, and then all of a sudden these votes were in there. Again, this is not just he said, she said. It's he said, video, and a few 10,000 extra votes beyond capacity.
What do you want to bet that it's the same people who maintain the Epstein cameras are like, the area where the pipe burst, that camera was down.
Why have cameras? Why have cameras at all?
They never work.
Can we just get a Ring doorbell and assign an intern to charge it?
They stored them in coolers.
That's why.
Where's the camera?
No, nothing to
Hey,
look
quick,
into.
someone get my Coleman.
Every security camera is like 180p.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
It's
like, I can't. Literally, there's only one pixel there.
Yeah.
It's the entire screen.
You're just showing me video footage from the Hunt for Red October. No, that's not the pipe in the arena.
This is just the Great Dictator with Charlie Chaplin. But are you not entertained?
It was good.
It is pretty good.
I mean, this is one of those questions that keeps being asked, which is where's the data of the logs as the data is coming in? How are we going to be able to audit? How are we going to be able to look at it? All you'd be able to do is look at the answer. You'd be able to see, during that period, it actually had a huge drop in the number of tabulations. Yes, there were people in there. Yes, they were counting. We just didn't want to get too far behind. And so there was like a 99% drop, and this is how many few were going through. Instead, somehow, at the end of the period, you go black box magic, all of these ballots were counted.
Let me ask you this. There's a legal process for votes, right? There's a
Yeah.
chain of custody. The legal process for votes, does it involve having accountability and poll watchers who are able to verify the votes?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Now, if those people are sent home, should you continue counting votes?
Depends in the jurisdiction, but most of the time, no.
What if they're sent home on a lie that a pipe burst and the videographic evidence shows that that is not the case? Does that seem like a problem, Bill?
You know, it does.
Now, that doesn't prove everything else.
No, of course.
But to me, that's enough to throw the certification of Georgia in doubt. Not to mention, you have anywhere, the estimates are between 6 and 11,000 votes from people who are out of state. I'm suffering from the same condition, Doc. I just showed you my registration in 2 different states. That was accidental, let alone if someone wanted to do it on purpose.
Yeah.
I think it would have been very easy for me to vote twice. I guarantee you I could have voted twice, actually.
Well, and if there's a logical explanation,
I still
for
don't
this,
know that I haven't.
they should have already come out
you
with it.
didn't. Someone may have
Right?
done
I'm
it.
just saying,
for
in the
you.
system, I still have no idea where my vote or my wife or Nana's is.
Yeah.
But the guy with the mask told me I could track it.
Right.
That was like
right.
the most full mask I've seen. Like it was like all the way up to his eyeballs and then down to his Adam's apple.
That's a guy
trying
who
to
ate
keep grandma safe.
Thanksgiving by himself.
But just like he does every year.
What's the matter with that, Stephen?
So this is another one, more, again, statistical evidence looking at the anomalies. So now we have, affidavits, people saying we were turned away, people saying, all right, you know what, they continued counting votes, and them saying, no, there's no evidence. Now we have that evidence that they did continue counting votes with no poll watchers, no accountability, and they lied about a pipe bursting. And then we combine that with some crazy statistical anomalies that have happened in Georgia. Here we have Matt Brainerd of the Voter Integrity Project talking about it. Let's roll the clip.
All of the analysis that we've done don't really require you to say, trust me about a magical mathematical formula or some pattern we discovered or something that supposedly happened in the software of the voting machines. I can give you the list of the people who voted in this election who filed national change of address cards in Georgia, moving themselves to another state. And I can also show you the subsequent state voter registrations of these individuals in other states who then cast earlier absentee ballots back in Georgia. I can show you the names of the people and the records of them having voted in multiple states in the raw data that the states make available. So this isn't speculative.
Yeah, and by the way, the
Wow.
FBI has requested the data so that they can review it, which means it'll disappear.
Absolutely.
When did the guy from Hitman get into voter fraud?
Yeah. Heavy career
47.
pivot.
And why would
2020
they
is tough.
put him in front of an exact tone of his flesh color?
Yeah, exactly.
My eyes kept focusing. I mean, maybe it's they're squinty, but you know.
The whole tie and whole.
I want to really
It was.
pop because this is this is a big deal for me
Yeah,
on
yeah.
air. How do you
Yeah.
feel about taupe?
It's a good background.
No, I don't really think that. I'm thinking something maybe not. How about sable? A good sand, no earth tones. So light brown, you're fired. By the way, this is something the lawsuit also calls for an emergency declaratory judgment that voting machines be seized and impounded immediately for a
Yes.
forensic audit. And to be clear, federal judge Timothy Batten, I want to make sure I get his name right, Timothy Batten Sr. reapproved a temporary restraining order late last night, declaring that election officials were barred from wiping or altering Dominion voting machines
Trying
used
to
in the November
wipe it?
election. Here's the
Yeah.
thing, too. Why wipe it?
What?
Why wipe it all?
Well, it's Hillary's server. You got to do it.
Nothing wrong here.
Right?
Well,
Let's
like
wipe
with
it
a-
Why
off.
then consider wiping it at this point?
It's ridiculous.
That was on the table?
It's
Oh my
it's so just so some folks everyone needs to go read this, but this order came out last night at I believe 10 Eastern. There was a revised order that came out that
Late.
said no, you
Yeah.
cannot go and delete these devices.
Right.
Now here's
But
one of the
can I-
things that's
can I delete
interesting. Before you file these kinds of motions in almost every jurisdiction, you have to confer ahead of time because courts want to know like is there really a fight here or not. So that means that most likely Sidney Powell and her legal team said, "Hey, we want you to not wipe these devices tomorrow," and they were like, "Nah." You got to go make the
Yeah,
court tell us
exactly.
not to. So the allegation here was that these were going to be deleted today, that these devices would be wiped by the end of the day on November 30th while all of these questions were out there. Now, obviously, that's why all of this rush to put all this evidence together to get it out there, get it on file by Wednesday so that there could even be. The fact
Hence
that there
the
was a
typos.
hearing on Sunday, sure. That
Which seemed like a
definitely explains the
formatting
typos.
thing, by the way, to me, if you look at the way the words were spaced.
I mean,
and some odd symbols. I don't think it was
Yeah.
typos. I think
There's
there was
that.
formatting.
There's the being able to check on in all caps. Spell check doesn't work that well on that. Anyone
She
who's
was really
litigated knows that. I mean, look, it's frustrating stuff, but you look at all the subsequent briefing. It doesn't have those issues, and those
Yeah.
will be their distractions, but they don't touch the merits. And if someone is only pointing out the typos or the
Yeah.
formatting errors, it's because they can't attack the merits.
Yeah. Before you get to the rampant possible voter fraud, there's already enough in Georgia to just flip the margins. As
Yeah,
far as people
well-
voting out of state, as far as double vote. There's already enough to completely evaporate.
Yeah.
Joe Biden's lead. Just to be clear about that, Georgia, absolutely, if you're just counting legal votes and you're not even getting into statistical anomalies, it should flip.
Yeah, exactly. And if they're like, oh, here's our excuse, and we're just like, oh, we can't count. Nope.
Yeah.
I have no idea which vote.
It turns out we counted all the votes in Safari private mode.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Darn.
We can't do that. Now,
Next to our pictures of Belle Delphine.
the remedy for that is that legally they cannot, by federal law, they cannot send electors if there is fraud. If they suspect that there is fraud, they have the ability, because the federal law does say that you have to be able to make sure, like if there is a suspicion of fraud, right, you can't send electors to us, or I'm sorry, not that you can't, but you have the ability to not send electors and say, hey, we can't certify our vote. We can't tell you who won because you guys cheated, and then you shuffled the papers around so we couldn't figure it out. So now you don't get those electoral votes. They just disappear from the map.
And so this is where the timing of the process really matters. And it mattered in 2000. Mm-hmm. And now it matters again.
I'm following you, too.
Which is you can certify,
Keeps
but
mattering,
you still have to send it to the Electoral College. And what they're saying now is undo the certifications because of the fraud. Don't send it to the Electoral College because we need to look at it. And is that unprecedented?
No.
That's 2000.
Al Gore had 37 days wanting to count only 3 counties.
Yeah.
And George Bush lost every single case until it got to the Supreme Court where they said, like, why do you want to recount 3 counties? Let's recount the whole state. He said, no. Wait. They said, no, we're going to recount everything. He said, no. They said, dismissed. Effectively. That's not the legal
Could you
charge.
imagine if in 2000 Al Gore came up and was like, look, guys, before the count's over, we're just going to destroy all of the Chads, hanging or otherwise.
Right.
Yeah.
And in fact, we're just going to annihilate all of the records. I invented the internet.
Except for 3 counties, and I don't want to see any of those Cubano votes somewhere.
Oh, boy.
Venezuelans, what do they know? Socialism works.
If it's done right.
So does my masseuse. Here's what I will say, because I think it's January 6th. This is going to go before the floor, right, when they confirm the election. I think January 6th.
January 6th, yeah.
Any Republican at this point, any Republican who does not, they will all have their time to issue objections, who does not issue an objection to this election, I will say primary them, vote them out.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you can say all of these votes, you can prove every single claim here, but anyone who has no problem with these elections, these anomalies, these irregularities in this election, any Republican up there, so people talk about Team Trump, people talk about Republicans in the swamp, listen, if you care about the future of our constitutional republic, you better have an objection January 6th. Anyone who doesn't, you make my shit list.
Right.
I just want to be really clear, and let me be clear about something else too. I said this before. Joe Biden, if he wins, I'll accept him as the president. If we go through the process, it is very clear right now, unless this goes to the Supreme Court, there will be no honest tally, no investigation of these votes. And to save time, I will say President Biden for the next 4 years, if that's the way it goes. But I'll claim this ground right. No, I'm not going to consider him my president.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Count me on that crowd. A T-shirt, not my president, if there are no objections and none of these things are examined. If we don't throw out at least the votes from people who are out of state and dead folks and people who are underage. I know you have a lot of milquetoast commentators out there saying, well, those are... Nope. Cheated.
Yeah.
Sorry. If you play Rummy Cube with me and you cheat, I don't go, oh, well, that's one for you. No. It's not, if I cheat, sometimes I win. If you cheat, sometimes you win. That's not how this works. I'm sorry. I am not one of those guys. I will be unconvinced.
Yeah, and the power actually, so you made a good point, primary those people out. It actually, in the states, the state legislatures are the ones that have the power. So if you're in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania and Georgia right now, and your state legislature does not step forward and say, hey, if you're not willing to do an audit and investigate these claims, we will not certify this vote and send anybody to the election. We'll just keep everybody home. That would keep it from being 270. Nobody would be able to get to 270.
Just imagine in Georgia, they're talking about people who are out of state. The situation that we just showed you in Michigan, where I am registered to vote.
Yeah.
And I did not vote in Michigan, and there's a ballot sent in Michigan. Let's just assume this kind of same scenario where there was an excuse in Michigan, which is not outside the realm of possibility. In Georgia, it was a pipe. In Michigan, they didn't even come up with a lie because it was Wayne County. They just thought, let's put up some Bristol boards, bring in some wagons in the back door. Uncle Sam's none the wiser. So imagine if in Michigan, where I'm registered to vote, and my wife's vote doesn't count. So from what we've seen, her vote hasn't counted thus far. Could be 99% chance, and I'm just wrong about this. It's like using my grandma with a VCR. But my grandma's vote didn't go through. My wife's vote didn't go through, despite a formal of address. I'm registered to vote, and there is a 99% chance that someone received my ballot there because ballots are mailed out to anyone who's registered to vote.
Yep.
And that just takes place when they Bristol board up the precinct, tell all the poll watchers to go home and can fill in anything they want in the ballot. Why wouldn't my ballot be in there? And why wouldn't they toss my wife's and my grandma's? That's the point here. Do you have any idea how rampant this can be? We've done this in reverse. We've gone through the statistical analysis, and then I said, you know what? On a hunch, anecdotally, let me see if there's some screwery going on with my vote. And I said, there is. Let me check. What? And I went down every single family member in Michigan, and none of them added up.
Yeah, Bill, and isn't that a legal argument where once you've kind of crossed the line, isn't that like fruit of the poisonous tree? I've heard that term be thrown around a lot. Like once you've crossed the line and broken the law, don't you have to go, well, you broke the law there, and so we can't trust what you've said after this in that same voting process. Like, is there an argument to be made there?
You're mixing legal analogies, metaphors. I'll be honest, I don't know.
Or
what
analogies.
Okay. No, the point
is about rotten fruit.
Fruit of the poisonous tree
and
is,
Joshua
for example,
Tree, the album.
If you were to go and collect evidence of violation of the Fourth Amendment, fruit of the poisonous tree is any evidence that you would have obtained in a legal search and seizure. What you're talking about is a weighing of the credibility of certain evidence, which is to say, if you've done this certain thing wrong, it can be used as evidence in some circumstances to show you continue to do wrong. The other principle I think you're talking about is if we cannot establish the legality that the processes were completed. For example, when Alito said, hey, back at the election, he goes, hold these ballots aside. We have to analyze these ballots that may have come in late. He's saying, as a group, we might have to consider these votes as not legally cast votes.
Right.
And that means you could take you can say the process was done incorrectly, and as a result, there's legal grounds to say this entire batch of ballots is out. So what we're saying here is that if the earlier points in the chain were all broken, they lead to a place where the election procedures were not followed, then there can be a scenario where large batches of ballots, coolers, whatever you're carrying them in, are all thrown out. And here's the thing. You don't
trick-or-treat pillowcase.
Look,
good enough. It's just the leader of the free world.
You don't have to believe, the show. You don't have to believe random people. You don't have to believe your elected officials who say, wait a minute, we should just do a real audit here. We should just really look at it. You can look at the federal judges in 2 different states who are currently taking action, injunctive action, who are saying, please stop destroying the evidence. Let us just look at it. File your briefs, and we'll go from there. So this week in Georgia, we're
Democrats are with a hammer going, huh?
What?
I'm sorry.
Hold on a second. I'll be right back. I just got to take care of this hard drive.
Where's the magnetron?
Like Santa's fraudulent elves. In Detroit, it wasn't poison tree. It was a poison dart frog. They just blow darted people with poison dart frog darts.
Really?
And then they came up with 143,000 votes.
Well, that's one way to do it.
It's a part of our legal system. Yeah. It was a safeguard that the founding fathers put in there.
It's not murder. Not at all. Not if you get their vote.
It's not murder. It's a surprise nap.
The best gifts are the ones that are unexpected.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And the ones that you make yourself. Just rubbing it on a frog like Apocalypto. Certified. Okay. So let's go on. Okay, I think we've. Any other comments on this? No. Good. Okay, let's move on to Tucker Carlson here. Okay. All right. This is it's getting intense, and then we're going to take your chat as to where you line up. And hit like, by the way, if you're watching right now. Boom. Click like, the like button. We're just going to be doing this for a couple of days. Just click like. We want to see if this actually gets this information through the YouTube algorithms, despite us not being an authoritative source. Namely, that we actually provide sources. Tucker Carlson, a lot of people have been giving him some crap, and a lot of people are saying, okay, he's not a conservative. He is not amongst us. Let me full disclosure here with Tucker Carlson, and this is the case with many people at Fox News or in media. I have had some personal interactions with him, so I want to be clear. And so I try and avoid talking about these subjects because of the inside baseball, and I know that I may be biased. Multiple personal interactions, and you guys have probably, you can even search. I know there were some on air. They've been mixed. Now, that being said, I want to make sure that I'm going through the claims in Tucker Carlson's history on the merits. And I don't believe Andrew Breitbart believed in Ronald Reagan's, the 11th commandment, you don't attack your fellow conservative, right? And I certainly don't believe in just attacking people because they disagree with you slightly on an issue. That is different from fundamentally changing your worldview or throwing someone else under the bus who is also conservative and also on board with our cause because you may be throwing a temper tantrum. Now, I don't think that Tucker Carlson always does this. I think that Tucker Carlson has done a lot of good work. I agree with Tucker Carlson's views in a lot of ways. But anytime you have someone who has espoused views that change seemingly with whichever platform is afforded to him at that time, like we have bow-tie version Tucker Carlson at CNN, Crossfire, then we have MSNBC Tucker Carlson, and then we have Fox News Tucker Carlson, we have post-Donald Trump Tucker Carlson. Okay. This is where you get into it. And let's start off with this. Sidney Powell. Tucker Carlson caught a lot of flack because he criticized Sidney Powell's lawsuits publicly and also called her work ethic, or I guess you should say her legal ethic, into question before the suits were even filed. This is what pissed a lot of people off.
We simply wanted to see the details. How could you not want to see them? So we invited Sidney Powell on the show. We would have given her the whole hour. We would have given her the entire week, actually, and listened quietly the whole time at rapt attention. That's a big story. But she never sent us any evidence, despite a lot of requests, polite requests.
First off, Sidney Powell said that they were not polite requests. Now, again, I will say inside baseball, we've invited Sidney Powell on this show, and at that point in time, they were very clear, well, there are some things that we can't discuss because of legality until we file these, and we have to be careful. This was happening behind the scenes here. You didn't see us go, bitch!
But I really wanted
But I really want the scoop.
Polite.
Please.
We asked politely.
Half-ish Larry Richmond told me, like, listen, we'll see if we can get Sidney Powell on, but if she can't, I understand because of the legal issues, maybe we can get her on afterwards. Why would I want to undercut her other than to highlight the fact that they didn't give us an exclusive scoop? We would have given her an entire hour. Oh, really? And that could be admissible? And then she loses? I'm sorry, that was completely off base. It was a shitty thing to do, and it's not something that I would imagine a conservative who wants to win this election would do.
Yeah, as if that's like a really nice thing he's doing for her. Like, we would have given her the whole hour or a week. Oh, that's so good of you.
We asked for her debate prep beforehand so that we could air it in front of her opponents, and she politely declined. And so, what a bitch.
And I super wanted it.
And I super wanted it.
Please.
So that's the situation that happened there. And I say behind the scenes, this happens all the time. And you have to try and work with these people, especially when this could be one of the biggest lawsuits in American history, certainly as it relates to election fraud ever. And now we see the evidence that has been provided cumulatively. And if there is not an apology issued, that's an issue. Doesn't mean that Tucker Carlson's voice should be discounted. And it doesn't mean that everyone should tune him out just because you don't like that he did that. But I do think it was a crappy thing to do. Here's something, too, that you need to know about Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, you see this a lot with people on air. They present themselves as the everyman. You know, you had Bill O'Reilly doing this, like just looking out for the folks. You haven't met a folk in 30 years, okay?
Oh, Bill.
You have someone go out and talk to the folks for you.
Sometimes he walks on their backs.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes he has them walk on his backs.
Oh, whoops.
Tell the folks to bring me some food.
That feels nice.
So Tucker Carlson was raised, he's kind of the definition when people talk about a wealthy elitist, okay? His dad married into the Swanson fortune, right? This is where he is, basically married to the Swanson fortune. This is a guy who has been... That does not discount anybody's views. But for me, it's if you go, hey, I'm now championing the working class because I understand it, and that's kind of your brand, I think you need to be transparent about the fact that that's not really something that you would really have a whole lot in common with. I think Donald Trump does that very well. Donald Trump seems to care about the little guy in the United States, and he's very clear that he's not one of the little guys, as seen by his penthouse apartment entirely plated in gold. The only man with more gold is Ben Carson. I could not believe when I saw his bathroom in Florida what a pump he was. So, let's look at Tucker Carlson's views. Again, the reason people have a problem with him as far as consistency. He was a pro-Iraq war Republican for a while before he became sort of what is seen as a quintessential sort of think tank libertarian, right? This means that people who work at Cato, people who maybe work at some kind of Liberty Institute for Freedom, Prosperity, insert here, foundation, fund.
That's my favorite.
And he tried to ingratiate himself to the sort of intellectual, conservative, Friedman-type think tank base. Now, when Tucker Carlson was asked in 2003 about the Iraq War, he gave a long list of reasons to invade, and then he ended with, what other evidence do we need? And to be fair, Tucker Carlson has been very clear about the fact that his views have changed. I'm not saying that people's views cannot change, but they have changed dramatically. He has made a 180, and he's done it several times, from CNN to MSNBC to Fox News to post-Trump Fox News. And I can say this because I was on Fox News pre-Trump with Tucker Carlson, and it's not the same guy who you're seeing right now. So consistency in this case does matter when you're looking at something that seems like it could actually irreparably harm this investigation from Sidney Powell, which it could.
Yeah, I think it's possible. And look, I don't know that I took it quite the same way that you did when he came out with that. My initial thought was that doesn't seem like the right thing to say. You shouldn't be saying that. But he needed, at the time, everybody was talking about this story, and everybody was discarding this story and saying, there's no evidence. She's just holding press conferences. It's another thing that's going out. So I think he was fine to cover it and say, hey, we've reached out. We've tried to do this. We'll present evidence once it happens. I think where he crossed the line with what you were saying is that he seemed to make a point of the fact that she would not come on the show. Yeah. And he seemed to kind of throw a little bit of a temper tantrum about that. But then he cloaked it in. And she said
that he was rude.
Right. And then he kind of cloaked it in, we hope that evidence comes out. And I think that's true. If he ends up just having a misstep there, fine. But I think what you're saying is there's other evidence that says that probably wasn't a misstep.
There have been a lot of missteps. And then, you know what, I'll give you a little inside baseball with my experience at Fox News. I'm certainly not saying that Fox News tells people what they can and can't say, but sometimes they tell people what they can and can't say.
Allegedly.
A while ago, as a self-described, and it's interesting because he looks older because the bow tie was his gimmick for a while. Right. Self-described libertarian, here he is.
I am a right-winger, sort of a libertarian right-winger, but I'm far out, and I make no secret of it.
Radical man.
Far out, bro.
Far out.
Here he is, bashing those so-called libertarians recently.
Our leadership class remains resolutely libertarian, committed to the rhetoric of markets when it serves them, utterly libertine on questions of culture.
Okay, so this is the issue. Again, these views change depending on where he is, like CNN, MSNBC, where he didn't have really great ratings, and he's been very open about that. I will say this, having worked at Fox News, there certainly is, they don't tell you exactly what to say, but they do tell you which third rails to avoid. This is true of any network. I ran into this quite a bit.
You've stepped on a few.
As you see with what happened, just look at what happened in the election with Mitt Romney at that point. Rick Santorum was basically persona non grata when it came down to both of them. They had chosen Mitt Romney. It was basically a coronation at Fox News. And I will tell you that behind the scenes, it was well known that you were not welcome if you issued the criticisms of Mitt Romney that I think were very valid, namely that we know now he's a wiener. And Fox News, whenever you're with a network, it frames what you are allowed. I don't want to say, they don't come down and say, hey, Tucker, tell them you're a libertarian today. Then they go, hey, tell them you're a populist and hate libertarians today.
Well,
what does happen is they say, hey, this is what's working with ratings. This is what people are receptive to, and this is what's required for a multi-billion-dollar corporation to continue succeeding if you want that nice slot. He doesn't own any of his shows. A lot of people at Fox News don't even own the rights to their own name. You need to be clear about that. So these people, I'm not saying they're mouthpieces for someone else or for a network, but when you look at a track record over time and you go, the views did change based on where the check was coming from, that does give one pause, especially when combined with the fact that I don't know how any conservative goes out and attacks Sidney Powell before this suit is filed. I don't understand it. And when you combine that with remarkable inconsistency, I can see why some people might be upset. Here's another one, by the way, some more information for people out there. It was only after taking over the Kelly slot at Fox News that he really did start going all in on Trump, because I remember when I used to appear on Fox News. And this was back, I think, Trump ran in the primary in the year there was Santorum and Mitt Romney. Oh, wow. So we went through it back then.
And we all laughed.
And now we see him, he was a libertarian on the war, and you even look at his arguments on drugs, and you look at his arguments on national defense and where he was hawkish and where he wasn't. And now, he holds very big government views, which again, I would just say are inconsistent with not only a conservative viewpoint, but the viewpoint that he espoused not that long ago. Here he is on the Ben Shapiro show at Daily Wire saying that if he were president, he would use absolute power to simply ban self-driving cars.
Would you, Tucker Carlson, be in favor of restrictions on the ability of trucking companies to use this sort of technology specifically to, sort of artificially maintain the number of jobs that are available in the trucking industry?
Are you joking? In a second. In a second.
Okay, but let's give him a pass.
So mad.
Ben has that.
Yeah.
Ben has that. He has that quality.
He does. Yeah. Well,
Ben tends to have that effect over people.
Yeah, he finds the button.
Brow was so furrowed.
Pushes it.
My gosh.
He was like the unibrow baby in The Simpsons. Now that might just seem like, well, he's only being big government there because he's pro-working man, right? He's a protectionist, just like tariffs, truckers. And so some people go, Made in America sticker. Tucker Carlson is one of us. Great. I understand that. That's a new sort of populist worldview. I don't think it's very consistent with a conservative worldview. However, I understand why people might maintain that position. However, there are other examples of big government I would sort of say liberal, leftist authoritarian tendencies. As you see, we talked about it on the show, which was pretty upsetting to me that at that time, no longer the number one conservative show, was advocating for COVID panic. Here you have him in February talking about predictions of over 1 million deaths in the United States. And he actually went on to brag that he had brought this information to Donald Trump and told him that he needed to take action sooner than he had. Here's that clip.
But nevertheless, 70% of the world's population is a big number. In fact, it's 5.4 billion people. Currently, the coronavirus appears to kill about 2% of the people who have it. So let's be generous for a moment and imagine that asymptomatic carriers are not detected and the real death rate is only, say, 0.5%. That would be 1/4 of the current estimates. Even under that scenario, there would still be 27 million deaths from coronavirus globally. In this country, more than 1 million would die.
Does that seem like fear porn to you? And here's what's important. Contrast that with what he says about the pandemic now. Was there ever I was wrong? Because this was, keep in mind, before the completely discredited Imperial College study of London.
Right. Oh, wow. Well, if we just keep counting, though, we might actually get to 1 million at some point. You know, if we just
roll
lump
in
all
flu
of them,
and heart attacks,
and motorcycle accidents
trips.
where you coughed right before you hit the wall.
I mean,
think,
look at the flu clearly just changed into COVID because of how many we have no flu deaths now, basically.
Right.
It's amazing.
We've gotten rid of the flu. We've never been able to do that.
Miracle of modern science.
And here's the one thing. Like this is one thing this is also why we mentioned that we'll never be doing rebuttals to the Young Turks because this isn't really punching. I don't want to use this term, but I always believe in at least punching up. People have asked what my view is on Tucker Carlson. Obviously, Tucker Carlson is far more well-established than we've been, at least for a longer period of time, with a network with far more firepower. Another sort of some inside baseball, there are people who have been blacklisted if they appear on Newsmax and Fox News. That's conjecture, but I can tell you what, there absolutely is a blacklisting with people at Fox News because I can tell you that from yours truly. I can tell you that from people here on our network over at The Blaze, people who are not allowed to appear on Fox News if it's seen as competitive. So this is not, you need to understand that Fox News is not in this for some ideology, it's in it for a profit, and there was a niche market where they have a stranglehold, and they're now starting to lose that stranglehold. But you may be asking yourself some questions. Why isn't this guest on Fox News? Why isn't this guest on Tucker? He doesn't have the ability. Tucker does not have the ability to host any guests that he wants. He doesn't have the ability to appear anywhere that he wants. That's not his fault. That's the contract that he signed.
Right.
Now, again, we look at this and you go, okay, maybe he's looking out for the working man when he talks about banning self-driving cars. But when combined with the fact that he was advocating, I don't necessarily know that you would call them draconian lockdowns, but certainly measures more severe than most of you, including Tucker Carlson, now are rebelling against, you would have to say there's remarkable inconsistency. Yeah. When you look at someone and say, okay, he was pro-Iraq war until he was against the war in Iraq, you can say, okay, that's a change of opinion, I understand it. But then when you take it again in tandem with what we've already gone over with COVID and banning self-driving cars and drugs and Sidney Powell and the situation of being a libertarian versus being a populist, you go, well, hold on a second, it just seems like this keeps changing from CNN to MSNBC to Fox News, pre-Trump to Fox News post-Trump, and then it seems like his views have changed depending on whether he can get a scoop from Sidney Powell or not. Listen, we wanted to have Sidney Powell on the show. We couldn't have her on. My opinions on Sidney Powell have not changed. Yeah. Our opinions on COVID have not changed. My opinion on the Constitution of the United States and this election have not changed. My opinion on abusing executive powers to simply ban something you don't like has not changed.
Yeah, and to be clear, we're not punching at Tucker Carlson right now. We're not going after him.
This is belabored. I didn't want to do this, but it's one of those things where people are, listen, the ratings have gone down dramatically. Yeah. People feel as though Fox News may not be in their corner, and they don't feel as though they're getting a straight scoop from people. As someone who worked there for over 4 years, I think that there are a lot of great people there, but you can't just assume that some giant corporate entity and all of their personalities by default are on your side. Yeah. And do a little digging, you'll see that not even consistent on which side they're on.
Yeah, and in that clip, he actually said the reason that we're reporting on it is because it's true, right? And okay, he had a point there. He could have done it in a different way. That's the exact same thing that we're doing. There's a reason we're talking about this because these things are true. We're not saying that Tucker Carlson's a bad guy. You should never listen to him again. But he made some missteps here, and you need to know that that's not just a one-off.
Right.
And these are true things.
And this happens with conservatives virtue signaling where it's like, look, I am better than you because I'm going to call you out even though you're a conservative. Good example would be, I am sure that, let's say we find out it was just some kind of a clerical error with the voter registration, my personal voter registration, which I've said, 99% chance I'm just doing it wrong, like my grandmother with a VCR. Yeah. But someone coming out going, actually, that's just an accidental double count, and I'm a professional analyst, and you didn't get this right, therefore, you're a fraud. That's what you see a lot of in the conservative movement, because that wouldn't even be accurate. I've allowed room for myself to be incorrect.
Right, exactly.
When someone does that, like you do with Sidney Powell, like Tucker Carlson did, you undercut them, you undercut the movement, you undercut people who are fighting for constitutional freedoms of the United States, and I don't see how that benefits anyone, which is why I avoided doing this very topic, because I think that as a general rule, I like a world where Tucker Carlson exists more than where he doesn't. Same thing, I have disagreements with Ben Shapiro on a whole lot. People say, well, why haven't you voiced your disagreements with him? Have you seen him on the show? Listen, it's not always serenading with Ben, and I get that his dad was a composer. The point is, I prefer a world where there's Ben Shapiro versus no Ben Shapiro.
Right, yeah.
I don't agree with Candace Owens, but I prefer a world where there's a Candace Owens as opposed to no Candace Owens. Good for her on winning that censorship issue with the fact checkers. I don't agree with Glenn Beck and everything, but I prefer a world where there's a Tucker Carlson, a Glenn Beck, a Mark Levin, a Candace Owens, a Ben Shapiro, and myself than without them. However, when you have some of those people, as we've seen with Tucker Carlson, in several instances, taking pot shots at other people who he too should want to see amongst our ranks, combined with the intellectual inconsistency over time, it just rubs me the wrong way. Much like Al Gore rubs the masseuse the wrong way. If that's the wrong way, sign me up. We're going to go exclusively now, by the way, to Mug Club. Take your chat and play some hipster or hobo. Everyone watching on YouTube right now, the 100-something thousand people, just click like. That's all I ask that you do. Hit the like button right now, whether archived or live. YouTube, we don't love you. Piss off.